at least get his economy strong enough. Well, Flash actually, instead of going for the lower left hand, actually going to pick up a slightly safer position maybe at the 3 o'clock position inside. Just as if he just puts up a defensive grid, he's going to be able to also take the miner only on the 9 o'clock position. Fairly safe. Fantasy also actually can pick up the inside base at the 9 o'clock position, while Flash also goes for the double gas, the upper right hand. So he's just going to try to expand the entire right side of the position of the map. Going to go for another drop here on the main. Going to lose his dropship in the process, but 3 vultures get inside. They're going to cause some havoc in here, pick off several SCVs. And Fantasy's losing too much economically. He needs to get his tank number up there. He needs to stop this harassment. He needs to go out there and do some damage of his own. Still don't see a single starport out there for him. Still hasn't gone out there for some drops. And I'm surprised he has vultures here at the upper right-hand position, but he's not killing the SCV. I don't know what's up with that. Wait, 2 vultures are not going to allow you to kill a commander or force a float, dude. Just pick off the SCV and maybe at least force a cancel. That's already some nice damage done. At least he's going to come here, clear out some of these tanks. Oh, barely managed to pick off the mine with the vultures, but going to try to clear up some of these tanks and try to clear up the position and build the defensive grid around this 9 o'clock position. But I'm really worried for Fantasy here at this point because Flash is really expanding heavily at this point, taking the entire right side of the map. He is widening himself up a little. He's opening himself up a little. So we're going to see how effective, whether actually he might leave himself open to attack or not. But now he's coming out here with a heavy Wraith number. They're also going to be able to cloak when the time needs. But no Goliaths. I look at 2 Goliaths out there for Fantasy, and he's going to be forced to just stand there and try to repair his tanks and unsiege, but they just get shotting way too fast. Fantasy is going to go for some harassment here at the 6 o'clock position, trying to pick up some SCVs. Not too much damage done there, though. Only 2 Goliaths down there. They're just going to get picked off. Fantasy forced to micro those Goliaths like crazy and scan. He's picking off 1 or 2 Wraiths. A turret going to come up. Is that turret going to come in time? Flash doesn't seem to be spotting that. And the turret's all on the south side. Wraith's just going to stick to the north side of that 9 o'clock expansion. Can harass like crazy. And finally, Fantasy spotting that upper right-hand position. Also going to spot this 3 o'clock. Going to go in there and try to expand like crazy. Flash also going around everywhere across the map with those vultures. With those Wraiths, I'm sorry. And has his vultures coming in and going to clear up this 3 o'clock position. I'm not quite sure what's happening at the upper right hand, though. I think those vultures still doing some harassment there. But Fantasy looking like he's in a lot of trouble. Those Wraiths gonna be a lot of havoc for him, picking off a lot of SCVs. He's desperately trying to get out there with some Goliaths, try to pick those off while they're not cloaked, and is going to be able to finally force him off. But now he needs to put a turret at every location possible. Going to finally start working on some dropship play himself. Going to catch some more of those Wraiths out in the open. Across over a turret, I believe. But finally, only 2 Wraiths, I think, flying around there for Flash. So they're not going to be able to harass Fantasy as crazily as before. Fantasy, meanwhile, has gotten a decent number of siege tanks out there for Flash, focusing very heavily on those vultures. Very heavy vulture numbers out there for him. He's kind of hoping to continue maneuverability, continue having those tanks out there, continue having those spot across the entire map. Still working on the Wraith numbers, not transitioning into dropships. And of course, if Fantasy himself transitions into dropships, those Wraiths could become a significant danger to his progress. Seems like Flash actually wants to also expand here at the roll left and take both double gases, but that I see at the very least to start off, he's going to get picked off. And Fantasy actually going to go for a maneuver here at the roll left hand. Only a few siege tanks out there for Flash, so he's going to try to take this out. Should actually be able to clear this number up fairly well and take up this high ground. And this is a TVT, so a lead can change hands instantaneously in a TVT. One single maneuver can bring you back in a good position or completely doom you. This is the kind of game a TVT is. Fantasy going to go in here, try to hold this high ground. There's a nice line of siege tanks here, getting a nice scan off, going to get a few siege shots off on those tanks. But now, for the moment, it's actually seem like they're a little bit out of range of each other. Just C-shotting, and Fantasy has a pretty nice line. No vultures there, just a few Goliaths to support, worrying about those possible Wraith numbers. While we just see Flash actually adding in some more machine shop, going to try to go back to some heavy tank production. And Fantasy, interestingly enough, has not retaken the 12 because there's siege tanks close by, and he's really only mining on 4 bases this entire time, while Flash has been out-microing him this entire time for quite a while now. So I'm still fearing for Fantasy's possibilities of winning this match. Has his science facility up, so he's going to be continuing working on his upgrades. I think he has weapons 2 at this point. I do believe. Click me. Okay, weapons 1 only on the opposite side. I think Flash is weapons 1 too. I'm not too sure. We're going to be seeing those upgrades eventually. Has those Goliaths in there just to help spot against those guys. Gonna go for another maneuver here. A lot of vultures out there for Flash, trying to come in close, get a few shots off, acting as spotters as well. Scannon's also going to come off. But at the very least, for now, Fantasy holds with Flash also reinforcing. Had finally some dropships in play, also reinforcing with some of his own. Reinforcing with some of his own tanks. And Fantasy trying to pick up the whole left-hand position for himself. The double gas Wraiths are going to go in there and deny that. And Fantasy finally thinking of coming here to that north and trying to clear up this position for himself so he can pick up the Trollcock position. Vulture just going to get in close, plant some mines around those tanks. Not all of these are going to be able to do the damage, but it's enough to distract the tanks as well. Some of these mines are going to come in close, so Flash gets cleared out. And now that upper right-hand position is significantly vulnerable. Flash does have a lot of dropships, though. 4 dropships in there. Still don't see any dropships out there for Fantasy. Needs to get his dropship number up. He's going to want to take up the 12 position after expansion. Fantasy is going to try to siege on top of that, but Flash way ahead of that. Going to force Fantasy to flee before he even tries to do anything there. Should just try to set up a defensive grid before he tries to go for that upper right hand. Tries to knock it down. Tries to do the damage there. Fantasy still staying in this game. Doing a great job. Have some nice ground maneuvers, but he has to be very careful because of those dropships that are in play, because really those dropships could just do him this entire time. If Flash gets a nice drop on him, he's going to be in trouble. He's not managed to pick up the low left, the 7 o'clock double gas for him, so still holding the high ground near this 1 o'clock. There are a lot of siege tanks there, but I think Flash just might put a hold to that entire high ground superiority with just one nice big drop. And I'm fearing for Fantasy in that case. I don't know. I think I sound like I might be rooting for Fantasy. I'm not really rooting for everybody. I just like both players here. Nice mine laying by Fantasy. Look at those mines picking up. Oh man, that was absolutely beautiful. Flash moving out a little bit from that upper right hand position, but now found himself losing a lot of those tanks just to Vulture's harassment. That's beautiful play there from Fantasy. Gonna drop right on top of this to reinforce this upper right hand. But he's utilizing a lot of his forces and all of his entire fleet to just try to support that upper right hand. Flash tried to go for a grand maneuver, but at the very least, seems like Fantasy's actually gonna be able to go and maybe get a surround on that 1 o'clock base and pick it off. Going out there with some more vultures, trying to plant some mines close to tanks to pick those off. Doing a great job so far, trying to get into that 3 o'clock position to start harassing it. I'm just not sure how much he's going to be able to do there. Just trying to be annoying one vulture right up to the tanks, doing a little bit of damage. That's nice play, although it's going to get shut down with a big drop from Flash. Also Flash picking up yet again the 7 o'clock for himself. That double gas, that second double gas, if that gets going for Flash, that's, I think, just too much economy for him. He's going to be able to add even more factories, more machine shops, keep up a constant production of dropships and tanks, and that's going to be just too much. I still don't see any dropship play out there for Fantasy, and that really surprises me. Now has a lot of idle SCVs. That main and that natural both mined out. Only has the 9 o'clock positions, and he started to mine the 12 o'clock. Has a lot of idle SCVs. Might want to go and do something with them. Start some additional mining, but he really needs to go out there and deny some position. He has a position here at the low left hand. Gonna get a big drop from Flash on top of these tanks. So Fantasy gonna lose his entire position here at the 7 o'clock. So I think any chance for now of denying that is going to be doomed. He's trying to set up a defensive posture with just a few siege tanks and mines across this 9 o'clock position, but Flash is going to go in with a rather heavy maneuver here. A lot of siege tanks, a lot of Goliaths at the front as well. No vultures to support him, but still more than enough forces, I think, to do enough. Vultures trying to come in close, trying to plant in mines, but I just don't think that's going to be enough. Are a lot of mines, turrets being put up as well. So Fantasy going to desperately try to hold this back, but with no dropships in play, I really don't think he's going to be able to do too much. I think that position there at the 9 o'clock is doomed. We're going to see what Fantasy tries to do here, because he looks like he's just spread too thin. Doesn't seem like he has enough troops at all. Lost all the SCVs. I think might have managed to pull a few back, but he's lost almost everything he had at that 9 o'clock position, that one big gas that he needed. So he's going to go for a maneuver here to the upper right hand. Flash way on top of this. 6 dropship full of troops ready to counterattack that. All SCVs coming out here. Flash knows he just needs to hold the positions he has. He will be in a strong enough position to win this game that way. Dropships are going to come and drop right on top of him. Fantasy siege taking some of his tanks. Had a few Goliaths in there, so maybe forcing those dropships back. But Flash with a huge ground army and utilizing those alongside his dropships, I think that's just going to be enough. Scanning that position, So Flash will, at the very least, hold that upper right hand. Not going to allow Fantasy to do any serious damage to him. And unfortunately for Fantasy, his economy is in absolute shambles. So despite some nice plays, his economy has been so bad his entire game that he's just really not been allowed to do too much. Did float off that command center from the 9, but just not really managed to do too much. Gonna go for yet another attack here at the upper right hand. Is this finally going to be it? Flash now ready with his drop ships, ready to go anytime. He's lost out SCV, so he's not really mining here from the upper right hand, but holding it is the important part. If he manages to hold it, make sure that Fantasy doesn't take it for himself, make sure that Fantasy doesn't completely kill it, is going to be in good position. But you also got to think about the fact that he has that double gas at the lower left hand, giving him a lot of resources, so his resupply rate of troops is going to be crazy. Not fully saturating that upper right hand, but he's had such an economic superiority this entire game that I really believe his position is very strong. Still has the 3 o'clock position mining for himself, and his main and natural are mined out, but he still has, I think his 6 o'clock position giving him some minerals, but he still has the double gases, one of which is fully saturated, one is about half saturation. Fantasy is still going to try to do some maneuvers here, try to pick up the 9 o'clock position for himself yet again, but does he have enough? I just don't think he has enough production. I just don't think he's getting enough tanks out there, and the lack of dropships is really killing him. He just doesn't seem to be able to afford a dropship fleet. He did have a starport out there, but he hasn't really utilized it for anything else than getting a science facility. And the amount of trouble that he's in at this point, I think, is pretty bad. He did move away, did clear up that 9 o'clock, so he's yet again going to try to go for a heavy maneuver, but I think Flash just needs to hold this, needs to get his reinforcements at the right place at the right time, needs to utilize his dropships, and he's going to be in good position, is going to be just fine to hold back. Oh man, people, this has been an absolutely awesome TVT series, I gotta say. I haven't had a best of 5 TVT in a long time, especially not one that I enjoyed. It's been very standard play for the most part for most of these guys, but they're all over the place, trying to open up maneuvers for themselves, trying to find up openings. But unfortunately, Fantasy did not manage to completely clear up this 9 o'clock. Siege tanks holding with some SCVs to support, and Flash is holding every single one of his positions, and that is what is killing Fantasy at this point. Has all those factories, he's not producing from all of them. He's cleared up the whole left hand, no mining there, so that's nice. I think SCV is actually running towards that position right now. Yeah, start to continue some mining, and Flash is dropped on top of that to start some defensive maneuvers. But unfortunately, just Fantasy, his biggest weakness these entire last 10 minutes is the lack of maneuverability. No drop ships, nothing like he was fearing utilizing dropship because of all those wraiths, but moving around with the ground, it's just way too slow in army. Now his Tolkok position going to be threatened and floated off. And I think that Tolkok position was really the only economy he had going for himself. So I think with all of these advantages that Flash had at this point in the game, I really think there's no real way for him to lose at this point. Even a heavy maneuver, a nice big base kill, maybe double base kill from Fantasy would just give Flash an opportunity to do even more counter damage. And he's just all over the place, reinforcing him. Look, he has forces at every single one of his bases. So even if Fantasy were to go in, he just has too many forces all across. Now he's getting himself surrounded. This is the last of Fantasy's army, and there are forces at the south, forces to the north of them, and he can't really decide where he wants to go. If he tries to go anywhere, he's just going to be in trouble. So Flash doesn't even have to go around with a huge army. He just needs to keep his dropships full with whatever he produces from his factories. And yeah, so because he has forces pretty much everywhere that he needs them, and just needs to have those dropships ready for him just in case he needs to drop on top of Fantasy's army. Fantasy does have some Goliaths, but just looks like this is going to be the last battle right here. Fantasy going to try to do something with these siege tanks, but it just doesn't look like he's going to manage. So he's also behind in upgrades, interestingly enough, but just no way. The dropship's going to go and finish everything off. No way. Fantasy, GG. So despite a nice comeback to make it 2-2, Fantasy doesn't have enough, and Flash absolutely dominates on Polaris Rhapsody in both games. Gonna go out there and sign that t-shirt, yes, with some wavy designs and stuff. But there you go, people. We have our winner of the first semifinals. So no upsets today. Flash, despite some nice adversity from Fantasy, comes out ahead. Some lucky fangirl has a Flash t-shirt, so sell that on eBay and make loads of bucks. But anyway, this has been Ranchin. GG guys, Ranchin out. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next semifinals after I, get my brain screwed back on after that insane 2T series.